We're still missing Amy. Right. Dean, are you ready? Okay. It is 8:53, and I would like to call the special board meeting to order. May I have roll call, please?
Anderson?
Here.
Delgado?
Present.
Jacobs?
Here.
Larson?
Present.
Levy?
Here.
Miller?
Present.
Wong?
Here.
Everybody is present on Google Meets.
Okay, may I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Can I have a
Megan
second?
Miller, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any questions or discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, the agenda is approved, which brings us to the only agenda item for tonight, discussion of the WASB workshop we just watched. I think the best way to kind of tackle this might be to just call on people individually and ask to share learning and kind of start a discussion that way. So I see Megan is in my top left, so I'm going to start with Megan.
Well, cool. Hi, everybody. That was, oh, careful, baby. Sorry, yeah, it's a little chaotic here. So I'm still processing. I definitely took a lot of notes, but the first thing that came to mind for me was I'm curious about what our procedures are for some of the things that they talked about should happen annually. This might just be because I still feel kind of like a new kid, but like I don't recall I don't recall like an annual review of the code of conduct. I'm not sure that we've done an annual review of like the job description, like they mentioned, you know what I mean? There were just a couple of those items. So I'm going to kind of keep going through my notes and making a list. And I'm sure these things all happen, but I feel like since so many of us are new or on the newer side, it would be really helpful to just look at our operations just to kind of explicitly see what those procedures are. So that was really like my big takeaway. I think that would clarify a lot for folks.
Sure, and we it is on the calendar and in policy for, I believe it's the Oversight Committee, to review the Code of Conduct annually, and we haven't done that as a board, to kind of answer your question, because the Ad Hoc Committee has been working on it, the Ad Hoc Committee for Student Governance. So that hasn't been something that we've actively done. And then I did take a note also of the job description, because we did look at the job description previous and made some changes to previous to our last superintendent search. But I think that is, again, something that is really important to take a look at. So I actually jotted that down as a future agenda item. Anything else, Megan?
No, I feel like that was a lot to process. Definitely a lot of really wonderful topics were covered. Some of it was stuff that we kind of knew already, but I do feel like because there's so much, like I just read an article recently about like how school performance is tied to effective school boards. And so I was just reflecting that I feel like it would be useful for us to, as a full board, a couple times a year attend a workshop like this. Doesn't, obviously not the exact same topic, but I think it would kind of keep us fresh and asking good questions and clarifying things. So for example, like that's an easy solution. What you just like said with like the Oversight Committee agenda, I'll take a look at it. That's perfect. You know what I mean? So like that's going to help us be a more functional, effective board. And hopefully that's to the benefit of all of our students.
Sure. Thanks, Megan. All right. The next board member is John in my grid view.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good evening. And I thought the presentation was excellent. I think that one of the things that came to mind to me was um, I think this, I wouldn't want to say it's a requirement of every new board member, but I think that the board should be going through this annually. I think it's a good reminder of what we need to be doing. And I think even being on the board for nearly 2 years now, this is the first time I've seen this. I thought it was very useful. The presenters were excellent. I thought they gave excellent examples. And I would also agree with what Megan said about additional webinars in this case now. It's easy to do. We're at home. We can do this. And then reporting back to the rest of the board if only a few people did in regards to topics that are important to our district as a whole. So I think it's sort of our professional development, I guess.
Mhm.
But other than that, I thought it was well done.
Okay. Thank you, John. All right. Maria, how about you?
I am still processing.
Yeah.
That was tons of information. And for me, a lot of it is pretty much new.
Okay.
I really liked it. I thought it was very easy to understand. I liked the examples that they provided. I kind of wish that new board members would have had the opportunity to have access to the WASB website like right away after election, so that we could have, at least get more into, the statutes, the policies, and, pretty much everything. It is a lot to learn, like right at the moment. So like I said, I'm still processing, and I'm sure that I'm going to have plenty of more questions and more things to share after I'm done processing.
Absolutely. Michelle, who do we as a district register the newly elected board members to WASB, or is that something that kind of goes through like the back end of like an election?
After board members are elected, WASB will, or after the election, I should say, WASB sends out a notice to all of us in districts that usually help with that. So like I usually get an email, and then I have to go into WASB like through a special portal they set up, and I enter all that information in. So it's usually like 1 to 2 days after, or sometimes it's after the canvassing, which now with like absentee ballots and stuff is not until the week after the election. So it's like the following Monday.
Okay.
So then like that Tuesday or Wednesday, they'll send that email. I try to do it right away and get that sent back to them. And then once they receive that information from all the districts, they start sending out information to the new board members, such as the that first meeting that they do, like through the CISAs, where they can go to the, like in our case, it's Delavan, and they can go there and participate in like that beginners type class that introduces them to being a board member and stuff.
Right.
But now that we have like this PowerPoint and some of this information, like I took notes on the slides where they were saying, use these questions to answer for your board members and new board members, and even like link the policies and stuff. We could use that in the goal that you guys set for developing a more thorough orientation process. And things like that could be either sent or given to the brand new members right when they're elected, because typically I've never, in all the years I've been doing this, I haven't had a canvas where it's been different than what you find out from the TV and the elections that are on the election website. I mean, this is the first time I've seen the numbers change after 9 or 10 o'clock at night, when it said all 100% was in, and then the next morning the numbers changed. I've never seen that happen before. And we only had one other time where the votes were 9 apart for 2 people, one that made it and one that didn't. And so we definitely waited for the recount period request to be over, because we didn't know if somebody was going to request that recount, and they didn't. But I mean, typically on a regular election, it's usually defined enough that you could be able to send that information out right away to the people that you're pretty
Okay.
sure were elected and start getting them acclimated to some of those things. And obviously, after this month, our policies will be up and be able to be kept up to date more easily because of the way we'll be using board docs for that.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Stephanie, you're next to Maria.
Can you hear me all right? Because as I'm hearing myself.
Exactly. But I see you twice, Stephanie.
Pardon?
I see you twice. So I don't know. Does anybody else see Stephanie twice?
Yes.
Well,
okay.
When I speak, it echoes.
Yeah, because I think you're in here twice somehow.
Oh.
Because I see
that would be lovely. Before I speak anymore, because it's throwing me off hearing that.
Okay, yeah. Try. I'll come back to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Spencer, do you have any thoughts or anything you want to share?
So they actually covered a lot of good information there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff, it was kind of nice that they went more in depth after reading their code of conduct that we got when we first started, the handbook for it. It did provide a lot more information for me as a new school board member. And the one thing that I thought was really interesting is the same thing with Megan too, is how often does the board review the code of conduct, which you guys already answered that question.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point they said something about school visits. Do we do that at all? Or how often does that actually happen?
We can go into schools. What I've learned with previous superintendents, especially Dr. Childs, was that a school board member should not go into a building alone. They should always be accompanied by the superintendent, and that visit should always be arranged through the superintendent. It's also heavily advised that it's not just one board member, that it is 2 or 3, of course, never quorum of the board. But I think that is something that we would like to get to. And I don't know, Sue, if you have any other thoughts on that. That's just practice that I have kind of picked up and learned from people I've been on the board with and administrators I've worked with.
Kyle, I agree. I think that that's a good practice. And I think that, you look at the purpose of a visit, it's to understand just the climate of a school and see some good things in practice, just to be familiar with our schools and who is greeting people when they come into schools, that kind of a visit.
Yeah, and it could also be if the principal or the superintendent wants to highlight something going on really well, so it should never be where school members or people working in the buildings feel like a board member's there, catch you up to something. You should never be there unannounced unless you're a parent. Those are 2 different roles, and sometimes that's hard to distinguish the 2 of them. But if you're there as a board member, you should always be accompanied by the superintendent.
Kyle,
Yeah.
What about if you're in a volunteer role? Should that still be announced beforehand? I would think perhaps even touching base with the superintendent ahead of time, but just for clarification on that.
Yeah, I would think, and Sue, jump in too. If you're there if you're there for any purpose other than a board member, I don't necessarily know that you have to announce that visit ahead of time, as long as you're functioning in that volunteer role and not as a board member and kind of poking your head around and looking in classrooms and everything.
Right, I would agree. And I would, a lot of you are parents and have kids in school, and you're there for that reason as well. When you're doing a visit to the school as a board member, I think there's nothing, that makes a teacher feel better that you're there and you care and you're, just trying to be familiar with their school and what's going on in our schools. And the staff and the principals really do appreciate those types of visits.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Spencer, do you have anything else? Any other thoughts?
I know someone had a question about like bringing new school board members up to speed.
Mhm.
And I kind of like that some of the things that they said kind of already align with what we're trying to do, where we're doing like that board retreat,
Mhm.
where we're all sitting down and working on goals and visions and just trying to set what we want to see for the year.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm really
Okay.
happy to see that.
All right. Thank you. Let's see, Amy, you're next.
Both of the gentlemen did a great job. I wish Ben would have had a better mic. He kind of went in and out, which was a little challenging because the information he was covering was interesting. I think the webinar did a really good job laying out board responsibilities. One sentence that stood out to me, which seems so simple, but it's powerful, is when resources, thinking, planning, and execution are aligned, everything goes smoothly. So just making sure that our money, our motives, our practices, etc., are aligned for the best interest of students. It seems simple, but if we just always keep that in mind, I think things will go well. And then the other thing that stood out with me was constructing excellent standards. And that vague standards make it hard to hold anyone accountable, including us. So just really being thoughtful on the front end of what our practices and policies are and making sure that we're constructing excellent standards.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Stephanie, did you get, I only see you once now. Can you hear us?
I'm one person again.
Okay.
My split personalities have left. I'm not really quite sure how I did that. It was kind of like magic.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just did a lot of reflecting during it. And it just, the information was interesting, but for me personally, it just created a lot more questions that I have.
Okay.
Which is fine. And I'm really going to delve into that website a lot. I just wanted to comment on one thing that Megan said and one thing that Maria said. Maria, boy, I mean, I've been on 6 months now. If I had just watched that webinar, like only being on the board for a couple of weeks, I would have been just like overloaded. So kudos to all the new board members, because it is a lot of information and it's very overwhelming at first. For being an educator over 30 years, you would kind of think I knew a little bit about how, school boards, but until I became a board member, I had no idea really. And it's been a really fascinating, important journey. And when Megan had brought up a comment about that effective school boards affect student achievement, I find that really interesting. I really want to look into that a lot more. It kind of took me by surprise, to be honest. So it was a good webinar, and I think it's good that I've got a lot more questions that I want answers to. So for my own personal learning style, it was good.
Okay. Good. It sounds like positive feedback. This is a lot, especially for people who've only been on the board for like a month or so, because there's not really a lot of that that background knowledge to kind of hang some of this new learning onto. But I was really kind of really pleased with it. And I think after Sue and I kind of talked about Saturday, I think that this was really a great foundation for more work that we're going to be doing on Saturday. So it really worked out perfectly.
Yep, your plans should tie into it, Kyle.
Yes. Yes. So I wanted to just give everybody this opportunity to kind of talk. I know it's a lot of information. I think that PowerPoint is accessible. And so if you're interested in having a printed copy, Michelle can print them out for us and give them to anyone who would like one. I know that's kind of how I am, to revisit later.
Kyle,
Yeah.
I saved it and I sent it to Michelle, but I can send it out to the rest of the board.
Oh.
I have it, if that's all right.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Okay. Is there anything? I guess one question I have is we have another webinar next week. Do you want to have this little meeting after, or is it or I'm hearing that it's a lot to process. So is it something that we don't necessarily have to have this little debrief right after it, but maybe if we kept room on an agenda, one of the following meetings to kind of debrief? What do you guys think about that?
Megan here. I think that not only would that be helpful to us, but I think that'll be a little bit more accessible to the public since it's 9:15 at night, So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
It's Stephanie. I agree.
Okay.
Megan, because it was so good, it is a lot to process, and which is excellent. And I think just for us all to have a little bit of time to chew on it and to do our own, do a little bit more research into the areas where individually we feel we need a little bit more input is a good idea.
Okay. All right. Are there any other comments or anything anybody else wants to say about this?
Stephanie, again, I forgot to say, Kyle, thank you for arranging this and for doing such a great job with it. And that's it. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. All right. So seeing no other comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Before
Amy,
you do,
please. Oh,
sorry, Amy, I
No
can never
worries.
get my mic unmuted fast enough. It jumps all over on me. I just was going to say too, the link to the PowerPoint was in your email as well that you received, just in case anybody wanted it that way as well. John did send it to me and I saw that and I responded to his email too. So that's great. And we can always make copies if somebody wants a paper copy. So
Sure.
that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, I tried to get it already, but I couldn't access it.
Okay. Amy,
Okay.
Just
Amy-
FYI.
Amy,
It
go
should
ahead.
have,
Oh.
I'm sorry. When you clicked on it, Stephanie, it should have just downloaded for you, like down into a bar at the bottom of your
Right. Yeah, I
computer.
can do that, but I can try again because, like I said earlier, evidently I'm magic tonight with technology. So
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Let me know if you didn't get it, or like John said, he was going to email it. So hopefully you'll get it that way too.
Okay.
I just sent it out.
Okay. Thanks, John.
All right, Amy, go ahead.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
All right, is there a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion, a second to adjourn the meeting. Any other discussion or questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We will see you on Saturday.
Thanks, Kyle.